Hi guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you Stagg's brand new drum gel control. Now what this basically is a sticky gel pad, and you get 5 of them within the box. Now you can cut these to size if you want to use a smaller piece, and when they lose their stickiness you just wash them under some soapy warm water and it will clean them off, get all their stickiness back, and you can use them for as long as you want. Now in basic terms what this does is it reduces the vibration of whatever you attach it to. Now in practical terms that means it significantly reduces overtone. A good example of this would be that if you've got a snare drum that you really like the sound of, you love that first crack that you get from it, but you hate the ring that happens afterwards. If you put this on the head of the drum, it will take away all of that ring. Basically it won't let the drum head vibrate for as long. So you'll get that initial tone that you love, and you won't get that ring afterwards that you hate. It can obviously be used on any drum, and it can be applied to cymbals. Okay, now I see this to be really useful in a couple of settings. For me personally, I would tend to use this more in the studio. Now, I really like big open sounding drums, and it's really rare that you'll see any dampening on any of my drums. But in the studio especially, I tend to use some dampening on the snare drum. You know, as I said, I love open sounding drums, but sometimes that's just not the right sound, whether it's good or not. Sometimes you want a really solid, fat sounding snare drum that's got a huge amount of attack, but then it's very dry. I'd put a piece of this, maybe even 2 on the snare, and it would help me achieve that sound very easily before the drum even gets into the microphone. But I see this gel's most practical use to be for live shows. Now in an ideal world we'd all get to the venue nice and early, set up our drums, have time to tune them, let the heads settle down to the temperature of the room, and then have a nice long sound check and everything sounds great. But we all know the world doesn't work that way. A lot of the time either you don't even have a sound check, maybe you can't find the venue and you turn up late, maybe the previous band have taken so long with their sound check that not only could you not hear your drums to tune them, but you've only got 5 minutes to sound check your whole band. Or maybe your lead guitarist is trying to show everyone how fast you can shred and you can't hear your drums to tune as well. So whatever the reason, quite often we don't really get as long as we would like to get our drums sounding good at a show. This can really help with that. When you get an out of tune drum, quite often the actual tone, the first thing that you hear, isn't that bad, but the overtone and the ring afterwards really shows up that the drum is out of tune. You get that horrible wobbly sound. It's just not nice. By putting a piece of this on each drum, especially if they're a little bit out of tune, you're really going to help make that drum sound a lot better than it does. It will control those overtones, stop you hearing the out of tune parts. You'll get the great thud from the first tone, and then you won't hear the out of tune part. So it's a really good kind of first aid kit for your drums, especially if you don't have time to get them sounding exactly as you would want. Now one more use that you can use this for that most people don't seem to really think of is to put it on cymbals. Now for me this is especially good for a ride cymbal, because sometimes you don't want as much wash as a cymbal has. You hate the fact that it builds up, but you love that pingy sound out of it. By putting a piece or more of this on your ride cymbal, you can again reduce the amount it vibrates, you get that great stick definition, but you don't get the huge rumbling wash underneath the cymbal. It will help to control and tame that. You can also use it on crash cymbals, and it's a really good way of bringing the volume of your kit down. If you're in maybe a small venue and you're doing a gig and you turn up and you've decided to bring all your 20-inch crashes and you're only playing to 4 people in a tiny little room, then putting a piece of this on your crash cymbals will bring the volume of those down. It will stop them ringing out as much, and it can just help to control any frequency of any drum or cymbal that you've got.